My name is Ben. Today's Saturday, and I learned about hypercubes last night and magic squares. So, it's a pretty complex subject. I guess it's captivated a lot of people for a long time, but I don't really want to say that I understand them yet, because I don't. And I told myself this would be the last thing I learn about. And I think I picked a good subject because I think it's going to go on for a long time. And I'm not very good at math, so it's going to take me a long time. But the one thing that I do know, right off the bat after seeing them, is that they're a constant that repeats over and over and over again. Magic squares are different from magic prime squares. Magic prime squares are really cool, and I'll jump to those in a second. I'll just explain what a magic square is off the bat. It's when you have a series of numbers that are repeated to create a constant at each row, in each column, and each diagonal. So there can be magic squares, which are two-dimensional, and add up to the same constant on each column, row, and diagonal. And then there are magic cubes, which also become three-dimensional and have sums of this final third volume column that adds up to the same constant. And then the diagonals, the four diagonals, also add up to the same constant. There are also hypercubes. I don't know too much about those, but that's when you take the numbers in the square or the cube and you raise them to an exponential form. Then they'll also still add up to the same constant. Worse yet is there's also magic tesseracts. And my assumption would be that you can keep raising that based on like a formulaic process where you say like there's a new thing that's y b, and yb has this formula applied across the same scale box as a fourth dimension or a fifth dimension or a sixth dimension, and you can keep adding them over and over again to create as many dimensions or properties or traits for whatever it is you're trying to build. The cool thing about this style is that it guarantees that that constant will be the structure itself of the entire thing that you want to build. So you would find that sevens are written into everything. And I would say they are the most important number. That's probably a big lie. But I feel like they're the most important number. I don't know why. I just see them in everything. And they just show up naturally. But so let's take a brief discussion of magic prime squares. That's where you take a number, could be any number, but for this example, we'll work with decimals, so numbers less than 7. And we'll take a number less than 7 divided by 7. So you get 1 divided by 7. And you ended up with an answer about 0.145 and then 71 or something like that. 8571851. Let's see, it's a 571428 is the repeating decimal for, or they call it a cycling decimal, or repeating decimal for 6 divided by 7. And it turns out that the number 1 less than the prime divided by the prime creates that repeating number, which is 8 851 751 428 is the number. And or is it 571? I don't fucking know. It doesn't really matter. Each magic prime square is going to have a number of digits repeating that is one less than the prime number. So once again, that's the number of digits that repeat will be one less than the prime number. So for instance, 1 divided by 19 will have a repeating decimal 18 digits long. 13 would have 12 digits, 11 would have 10. For instance, 3 would have 2. So 1 divided by 3 is actually 0.33, repeating onwards. It isn't 0.333, it's got to be one less than the actual prime. 5 doesn't fit, and so 5 is supposed to be this weird number that doesn't fit in the repeating patterns of everything. It's the only thing that isn't really fractal. It's still got a repeating kind of pattern to it, but it's different from everything else. So I don't really understand why it is, but maybe that's why the entire world feels insane, but when humans become smart, they don't display insane behavior. And the smarter they become, the less insane the behavior they display is. Who knows? Because all the other numbers repeat, right? 1 divided by 5 is just 2. But everything else keeps repeating these fractals over and over again, endlessly. Much in the same way, if 7 is the number of the universe, which I feel like it is, step out on a limb and say that, the universe must be repeating because any number less than 7 divided by the prime itself is a repeating fractal. So since we see that there are these repeating fractals in everything, if we look at the shapes on this glass here, we'll notice that they all have the same repeating fractal in them, over and over and over again. So if everything has the same repeating fractal in it, that must be a property of like magic primes, because magic primes are these repeating squares that go on infinitely, repeating the same sums, the same constant infinitely, right? A magic square has the same constant in it. So it's like a blueprint, it's like a part that repeats one constant as one constant in the structure. But a magic prime repeats infinitely the same constant. So I feel like magic primes are the construction piece, or the structural piece of the entire universe. They have to be, because they're the only thing with a constant that repeats infinitely. An example of that would be like this one guy was talking about how the final digit on a Fibonacci sequence repeats the same 60-digit number over and over and over again, and was speculating that people aren't entirely sure why we have 60 on all of our clocks, why we have 60 minutes on our longitude, latitude, why we have 60 seconds and 60 minutes on our clock, you know? And it was 60 is this weird number we see repeated over and over again, and it's just, it's root 6 in a 10-base number system. But why 60, right? What is it about a 10-base number system that makes everything so perfect? I don't understand how numbers work, but that's what I wanted to get into, was like, I feel like a 10-base number system is not how our brains are supposed to calculate things. I feel like a 1-base number system is, right? Like 1 is the most important number, because when you look at a 1-base number system, each number has to be perfect and unique, and there's only that number, right? But when you look at it in a 10-base number system, it sucks, because you're trying to take the properties of the first 10 numbers and apply it on a 10 scale to each number. So 131 is supposed to have the properties of 100, 30, and 1. But it's, that's stupid because it has the properties of 131, not 100, 30, and 1. If you put it in 100, 30, and 1, it's like trying to write something, a code, in spreadsheets, in like an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to slow the computer down so badly that it's going to lag. But when you think of 131 as just that number, there's no combination of anything. It is that number. And it's the fact that you have to add the properties all together that slows your brain down. So it makes perfect sense that Daniel Tammet can crunch numbers like that because he uses a one-base number system. It wouldn't be any other way. So he's the person that has the blueprint that will allow people to figure out how numbers work, right? If the entire universe is time, space, and energy, and then breaking off from that into different subdivisions, but containing parts of each subdivision, and then gaining infinite amounts of complexity as those subdivisions branch further and further, well then numbers have that same property, because numbers are just the blueprints to time, space, and energy, right? Numbers are the blueprint to the universe. So if we write something in numbers, it's a blueprint for writing something in the tangible physical world. So the fact that we have these magic repeating primes is going to be the same reason why we can make things like graphene, right? It's going to be the same reason why we can make something that just has the same structural form repeated infinitely. And that same idea could be applied to time, and it could be applied to space, whatever space is, and it can be applied to energy, which occupies space. And one could say that the fourth dimension of the universe is the blueprint. It is the why, right? Because if there's time, space, and energy, and we can break those down into the most simple to understand version of everything, right? You want to figure out something about the universe? All you have to do is say, where is it? Find the coordinates, which requires you, yes, to look at space, because there is no way to identify where you are without identifying where something else is according to time, because everything's always changing, and that's why they call it space-time. So, but other than that, though, identify space relative to time, but it's space. So where are you? When are you? What are you? And why? Right? And so why is like that question that pops up and makes you kind of have to identify the properties, right? So if you identify the properties of what it really is, I mean like the everything to it, you'll know what came before and what comes after. And then time is completely wiped out. It's not important at that point. Now you've answered the question of why, right? So in order to get the question of why, you need the blueprints. And numbers are the blueprints to figure out why. So that's why I want to figure out how Daniel Tammet looks at numbers, because I can't get smarter when it comes to math until I think in a one-base number system like he does. And he has the blueprints. He has the key, the understanding, and I can't get any smarter. I can do little funny math tricks and shit, but I'm not going to get smart like he is. I'm not going to become faster than a computer until I know what the root of a one-base number system is, right? I think it's primes, but for instance, what is the predictive method of primes? Is it perfect? How does it, I don't know these questions, and that would be something he could answer. So I asked him, and maybe he'll respond. I don't know. But that's what I was thinking. And that's about magic cubes and Magic Prime cubes, I think they're going to be blueprints, much in the same way a gearbox, the function for a gearbox would be written in a blueprint, and how it functions in the entire machine would be written out. I think, something like a magic tesseract, or a prime magic tesseract, or when you start getting to really high complex items, you can begin to build things that are massive and super complex. But right now we're working on like 3x3 cubes that are like magic squares and struggling with that. And until we get like a Daniel Tammet brain, none of that's going to be possible. But if Daniel Tammet can do it, then we should be able to do it. So I just don't know how he does it yet. There's going to be a way though, because if you can build synesthesia in your brain, then you can have that synesthesia build like a one-base number system. I don't know how you do it yet, but I'll try and figure it out. It should be possible though. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I mean, nothing is impossible. So, and I do like solving things. So we'll see how that goes. Probably really badly, but who knows? Yeah, that's Magic Prime Squares. Peace.